Good evening, and welcome to the Do Tell Story Swap of Sonoma County. My name is Katie Mangan, and I'm your host for this evening. And I'm so pleased that you're all with us. And we've got a great lineup of tellers already. Let me just go through the sort of what we'll be doing this evening. Just a reminder that stories are to be told and not read, 5 to 7 minutes shorter, or if they're longer, you will be asked to tell your stories later in the evening. We break maybe around 8 o'clock, just for maybe 5 or so minutes. And then after the break, we come back and Meg will give her a short report, and Vicky will also tell us about the Bay Area Storytelling Festival. And then after that, we will have a prompt. It's a question, and we just say our names, and then we'll answer that. And it's a great way of getting to know each other and introducing ourselves. So I think that is everything. And so I would like to bring our first teller of the evening, Bev Schwartz. Welcome, Bev, to the stage.
Thank you. Can I be highlighted, please?
Vicky will just get you. Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good evening. The name of my story is A Mother's Day Surprise. You know, a teacher is a legacy maker. They plant the seeds in their students' heads, in their minds, and watch them grow throughout the year. Since I was in second grade, I wanted to be a second grade teacher. I had Mrs. Solomon, and she taught me an important lesson. When I was in her class, I did not get invited to a birthday party on a Saturday that all the girls but me were invited. But I didn't really like the girl who was having a birthday. We never got along since kindergarten, and it was second grade. And I wasn't unhappy about getting, not invited, but when she asked who was going to the party, everyone raised their hands but me. And the next day I found an invitation on my desk, and I knew what happened. She realized I hadn't been invited and made sure I did get invited. I really don't want to go, I said to myself. And I had to make a decision because she went out of her way to get me invited. So I decided to go. And that Monday, when I came to school, I did have a good time because I liked everyone else that was at the party. And I became leader of the week. We had helping hands. So I'm walking next to Mrs. Solomon, and I took her hand and I said, Mrs. Solomon, thank you. And she said, you're welcome, Bev. I said, Mrs. Solomon, I'm going to become a second grade teacher when I grow up. And she said, I think you will make a great second grade teacher. And I really look forward to hearing about your career and the legacies you make with the children. And I went to college and I became a teacher. I graduated in the middle of January early, and I called up the school district I was student teaching in, and I said, I'm graduating in 2 weeks. Do you have a substitute job for me, or a full-time job would even be better? And the guy who answered the phone started asking me some questions, and he goes, do you think you can, after about a half an hour, come in and talk to me? I'd like to meet you today in a half an hour. Can you get here? Well, will the superintendent be there? I am the superintendent, he said in a deep voice. I didn't know I was talking to him. And I went in, we talked another hour, and he said, this Tuesday, what are you doing? I'm student teaching still. Well, forget it. You're going to be coming in, and I have a grade for you to teach full time, tenured when you get to 3 years. I said, what grade? Second. Oh, I won the lottery. I was going to be a second grade teacher. Oh, I had had the passion for that my whole life. Well, that class was hard. And the next 2.5 years was even harder because you don't realize there's so much to learn when you're starting to be a teacher. But in my 4th year, I had gotten my tenure and was much more relaxed. I knew what was going to happen throughout the year and the school activities. And I had the classroom that I was so passionate about because I just loved all of them. They would just fit together beautifully. Now, I I made sure that made some rules with my class the first 3 years, but this class really ate it up. I would say, we're going to pick girl, boy, girl, boy. You boys are very aggressive and the girls don't have a lot of time, space to be able to raise a hand and beat you to answer questions. We're going to have a lottery system, so the shy kids in our class who never speak up have opportunities to get called. So no one could say anything until everyone had a turn. And I try to treat them equally, but I was taught a lesson. At Christmas time, I said to the girls, why don't we come over to my house and bake Christmas cookies for the class? And they did, and they had a great time. They cleaned up beautifully, and we brought it in. And then the boy said, hey, you're not treating us equal. That's what you're always saying, treat the girls and boys equal. When are we making the cookies? The next Saturday I had them over, but oh my God, what a mess they made. But they were so proud of making cookies. Well, I was feeling really upset that I was going to lose this class and have to pass them on. And very many teachers get this opportunity. First, everything came crashing down. They were closing the school. Oh, and I was on the bottom of the totem pole still in the district, and there was only 5 jobs left when I got to pick. And the only one I saw that I wanted was 3rd grade. There was no 2nd grade. But the school was school 14 where my kids were going. And I said, went to the principal. Do you think I can have my class over again for a 2nd year? Well, our district usually doesn't do it, but I'll find out. And she got permission. So when I walked into that 3rd grade classroom, my kids knew the routine. I didn't know the curriculum, but we learned together. And we had another marvelous year, but this year I had parents coming in and helping more. We went on field trips. We did a lot of hands-on activities that they seemed to really like that I did in 2nd. Well, I was sad. I was almost in tears sometimes in May, thinking the year was going to end and I was going to have to leave these kids on to go to their 4th grade class without me. And one morning in May, I was teaching it. The secretary was at the door. Miss Schwartz, you have an important phone call. Come with me. The reading teacher will take over your class. And I went to the office and I sat there. And the principal had put the person on hold. There was only one phone in the school, and the secretary and the principal and the nurse shared it. So after 15 minutes, I was a nervous wreck. And then he comes out and goes, oh, I'm sorry. They must have hung up while waiting on the other phone call that I was on. But I didn't say a word. I said, okay, get me if they call back. Now, as I walked towards the door, there's a glass in the window. It's an old 1920 building with old wooden floors. And I see the classroom is completely dark. The lights are on and the shades must have been pulled down because it was pitch black. I opened the creaky door and as usual, the glass in the door, shimmered. The creaky floor creaked. I'm looking to see where is everyone, and all of a sudden, surprise! The lights flicked on, and oh, Happy Mother's Day! They all shouted. Behind, near a table that was filled and loaded with sweets, was the parents. In front of them was a half circle of my children, and in front of them was my teacher chair. 4 girls came and led me to the chair. They put a crown on the head that they had made with sparkles all over. They handed me a bouquet of flowers and my favorite chocolate-covered cherries. I couldn't believe it. And I said, oh my God. And they said, yes, we want to tell you why we are wishing you a happy Mother's Day because you have been like a mother to us and we just love it. And the kids and the parents started telling me what they liked about the last 2 years. I was trying to hold back tears, but then 4 girls came up and that did it. They had a little card, and to this day, I still have it. It was flowers because that's my passion. And I opened up the card, and then the tears started flowing. And the card says, and I'll show you their nice, neat handwriting that I taught them to do. Dear Miss Schwartz, April 5th, 1977. We want to wish you a very, very happy Mother's Day. For you are like a second mother to us. Love, Jackie Conroy, Kathy Coyle, Katie Spain, and Talon Vidakian. Oh, I knew from the bottom of my heart that that year I had planted the seeds in them to learn and have the passion for learning. I made a difference by teaching them, but they also made a difference to me because it taught me that teachers play such an important part in a student's life to start their legacy of their future learning and maybe become something that I sparked in them, like I was sparked by my teacher, Mrs. Solomon. And all I really have to say now is thank you, Mrs. Solomon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bev. What a beautiful story.
Thank
Lovely story. Oh, and I know that you must have been just the most fabulous teacher. Great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Very,
And
very
believe it or not, I'm in touch with some of those students still. They were married and they have kids that are teenagers and going to college.
believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Great. Okay. Our next teller is Beth Wakely. Beth, welcome to the stage.
Wow, what a great story. Well, this story is an old eh, eh, motif that is found in many, many cultures. This one comes from Richard Chase from North Carolina, and it is about only an old woman, no kids involved. An old woman lived by herself in a log cabin out in the hollers and the hills. And she had been saving her money year after year until she was almost rich. Now, she had all those coins and all that money in a leather pouch, what she kept up by the shoulder of the chimney in kind of a little alcove up there. And this old woman had quite a routine. She'd work all day and she had some sheep. So at night, she'd sit in her rocking chair going back and forth, scritch, scratch, carding that wool between the combs. And she'd finally start to yawn. And after the third yawn, she'd say, I'd best be getting to bed. And before she went to bed, she gave herself a small treat, for by her chimney she had hanging a very large dried fish. Oh, she loved that dried fish. Now, that fish had just one eye staring out into the room, and so she even named it Old One Eye. Well, along about that time, three ne'er-do-wells had come into the area and heard the rumors about the old woman's wealth, and they thought for sure they could take advantage. And so the three robbers to be crept up into the holler around her house. Now, the leader of the pack had just one eye himself, for he had lost it in a fight some time before. But he was indeed the leader, and so he sent one of the robbers down and said, You go and spy on that old woman's house, and when she goes to bed, quickly come back up and tell us, and we will rob her. The first robber went down, and lo and behold, there was a small chink missing in that log cabin right by the fireplace. So he peered in, and there was the old woman rocking back and forth, scritch, scratch, carding her wool. Oh, and she began to yawn. Oh, here comes number one. Two more to go. Well, she looked over at that dried fish, and the robber thought for sure she could see right through the wall at him. He jumped backwards and skedaddled back up, told the other two, That old woman's a witch. We've got to get out of here. She could see right through the wall. Oh, the leader said, No. Nobody could do that. You just got scared somehow. You go on down, he told number two. And that thief went on down, again found that chink and looked in. About that time, the old woman was rocking back and forth and getting a little bit more tired, and that yawn came. And she called out, "Ah, there comes number two." And she looked over at that dried fish. "Pretty soon I'll come after you." Well, for sure, he thought she meant him. And he ran on back and said, "We've got to get out of here. She really can see through the walls. She must be a witch." "Oh my gosh, do I have to do everything myself?" said Old One Eye. And so down he went, with the two following timidly behind. And with his one good eye, indeed, he looked right through that hole, and there she was, a rocking back and forth, and scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. That wool was looking pretty good, but so was that yawn. That third yawn came really big, and she said, "Ah, there goes number three. I guess it's time to get my butcher knife and take a chunk out of you, Old One Eye." Well, that did it. He heard his name. He leaped back, almost fell into the other two, and they skedaddled and hadn't been heard of since. And then the old woman, she went right on up to her old fish and took a big chunk, treated herself quite well that evening, and chawed on that dried fish until it was gone. And she went to bed and slept right tight through the night like a bug in a rug, not knowing a thing. And that is the short story of Old One Eye. You'll find that in all kinds of cultures. So, the end.
Oh, Beth, that was wonderful. Thank you. So beautifully told. I just love that with the scratch of the wool and then the yawning. Fabulous. Thanks again. You tell the best folk tales. Keep them coming.
And I'm glad we don't have to have dried fish instead of toothbrush.
Our next teller is Elaine Stanley. Let us welcome Elaine Stanley to the stage.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Let me see. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. It happened long, long, long ago. This was a time when the two-leggeds hadn't even come to Earth yet, but the animals could talk. And the word went out across the land that there was to be a big party. Oh, everybody heard about it. The lions and tigers heard about it. The sheep, the lambs, the cows, dogs, cats, every animal in the world heard about this party. But most of them didn't want to go because you had to be a real dog to go to this party because it was a dog party. It was for all the dogs in the world. Well, one animal who heard about it said, "I love parties. I want to go. I mean, after all, look at me. Don't I have ears kind of like a dog? I have a nose kind of like a dog, a tail and a fur coat just like a dog. Why, I could pass for a dog. I just need to get my bark together." And so he started practicing. And I know you guessed that who this animal was that wanted to go to the party, but in the interest of time, I'll tell you it was even I have forgotten. It was a coyote. Oh, Coyote said, "I should go to this party." And so he started practicing his bark. No, no, no. Nope. Nope. Well, weeks went by and he practiced morning, noon, and night until pretty soon he could bark like a dog. Well, he went down to where that party was to happen, and there were all those big old hot dogs standing out there waiting for the other dogs to come. And here came Coyote. And they looked at him and they went, "Well," and Coyote said, I'm a dog, I'm here for the party. I'm just going to be on time." They said, "Well, you're early, so we have a job for you." "A job? I'm here for the party." And they went, "Oh yeah, you can go to the party, but you got to help out. We need you in the coat room." "Coat room?" They said, well, of course, all the dogs in the world are coming to this party. We couldn't possibly have every dog in the world with their big fur coats, tails wagging this and that, making a big mess everywhere they go. No, you got to take their coats and hang them up in the coat room so they can all fit in the room for the party. Coyote said, okay, but I do get to go to the party. Oh, yeah, you'll go to the party. So Coyote waited, and sure enough, pretty soon the dogs started coming. Oh, they came from every direction. There were big dogs, small dogs, fat dogs, skinny dogs, hairless dogs, hairy dogs. Every color, kind, and size of dog you could ever imagine started coming to this party. And they handed their coats to Coyote, and he started hanging them up on all the hooks in the room. And there were bars across the room with hangers on them so he could hang coats. And he was so busy, as soon as they could get those coats off, he was hanging them up, hanging them everywhere. There were thousands, billions of coats everywhere. And pretty soon, all the dogs were in the other room having a party. They were dancing to music, they were eating and singing and having a good time. And Coyote started out the door to complain that he wasn't at the party when somebody brought him a big dish of food. He went, oh boy, yum. So he ate a couple of bites of food and went, but I'm not still in the party. This is no fun. It's not fair. It's not fair, he said. And at that, he leaned up against one of those coats and his paw slid down the coat and a tail came off in his hand. And he went, oh, look at that. I wonder if these other tails can move. And he started tugging on all the tails on all the coats that were around him. And the tails just popped right off those coats like magic. So he got a big armful of tails and put them under his left arm. And then to the music, he danced across the room to the other side and pulled all those tails off those coats and put them under his right arm, took the tails under his left arm and put them on those coats. And so it went for the rest of the night. He ate a little, drank a little, sang and danced. Across the floor he'd slide, pull a tail. Riding down the floor he'd slide, pull a tail. Pretty soon he had changed every tail on every coat in that room. And then the dogs were getting doggone tired. They had to go home. So they would file out, and there was Coyote handing them their coats. And they put on their coats, and out into the night they went. And when the last dog had left, Coyote went over and he turned out the lights and he started down the road and he said, I can't wait. I can't wait for tomorrow morning. Well, sure enough, the next morning dawned bright and sunny and everybody had had a great time. But the dogs didn't feel right. They wiggled their butts and they went, something's not right. And that is why, from that day, long, long, long ago, to this very day, when dogs meet on the street, they have to sniff each other's tail, make sure that dog doesn't have their tail. Yep, they do. And that is why when you walk your dog and they see another dog, first thing they do is go sniff that tail, make sure it's not there. Now you know.
Oh, Elaine, that's so wonderful. That is such a great story. Oh, brilliant. Now I know why dogs sniff dogs' tails.
That's right.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so this is wonderful. All these great stories. So our next teller is Laura. Laura, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. I'm going to tell a folktale from Ireland. Not all that long ago, give or take, say 400 years, A farmer near Fermoy sat in a corner in his kitchen, waiting. His wife and children were sound asleep, but he was in the dark, listening. And then in came the most beautiful young woman, her long hair glowing in a glint of moonlight. And she walked with tremendous grace to his table and lifted a bowl of milk, drank it down, put it back. She turned to leave. But then the farmer stepped forward and said, "Who are you? And why do you come here night after night and take any little bit of food or drink that we leave?" And she gestured to the bowl and said, "That's all I needed." And he said, "Well, that's not good enough. It's true that we've been supporting you for quite some time now. I deserve a better explanation than that." And she responded in song. I was a lass in Ventry parish, and there I married a lad. We farmed the land, working hand in hand, but in less than a year things turned bad. For I grew ill, consumed by fever and coughing night and day. 'Twas a sorry plight, none could set me right. I could see death a-comin' my way. On my own I am, on alone I cry. Will no one rescue me? I asked my man to tell my parents to come and carry me home, for I long to be with my family by the hills I could never more roam. By the hearth I lay, and my dear mother sat close throughout the night. She is not to blame, for her skirt caught flame at the moment the fairies took flight. On my own am I, all alone I cry. Will no one rescue me? They carried me right here to Fermoy, and since I've known only strife, I refuse their bread if I eat, it is said, I'll be theirs for the rest of my life. So I leave the lists when right at midnight the fairies dance and play. And your food I eat, but soon retreat. If they noticed me missing, I'd pay. On my own am I, all alone I cry. Will no one rescue me? So I beg of you to write my people and tell them where I dwell. They are named O'Shea, they must find a way to get me released from this spell. On my own am I, all alone I cry. Will no one rescue me? Well, hearing that, the farmer was greatly moved. Of course I'll write your people. And he did it right away the next day. But before she left, the young woman said, "Now be sure to tell my mother about the fire, and she will know it is I who needs her help." And she had to run right off because she only had a very short time when the fairies were distracted with their revelry, and the curse on her, the spell was really strong, and she couldn't go far. So that letter went off. The farmer even put a seal on it to let everybody know how important it was. And then he waited. He waited some more. And no return letter came. The women kept coming every night, and still no letter came. He sent another one. There was still no response. He sent another. And you see, he wasn't getting response because the O'Sheas back in Ventry Parish were beside themselves. The poor mother went to her daughter's grave and keened away all day because it was a changeling at the grave. It wasn't her daughter, and she was enormously, tremendously upset. And the father was also beside himself. He would just go to the pub every day and mutter to himself because, you see, the husband had gotten remarried and he had a young wife and she was with child now. So they didn't know what to do. They didn't answer. They were in a total muddle. But then finally one day, the son-in-law came to visit them, which he often did, and they told him what had happened. And he said, "Well, we have to go get her. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Tell him that we're coming." So the mother sent a letter to the farmer and they got everything ready, and soon they were off to Fermoy. And on their way, they came upon a church in Dingle, and they got to thinking, well, you know, none of us has ever rescued anyone from the fairies. We don't know how to go about it. We don't know anybody who's ever rescued anyone from fairies. Maybe the priest here has some advice for us. So they went in, the priest was there, and they poured out their hearts to him. And he listened. He listened really very well with a lot of compassion. And finally they were through. And he said, "Well, it's a hard case, I know. Very, very sad. But I'm afraid the only thing you can do is turn around and go home and leave her right where she is. You know, a man can't have two wives in this world, and there'd be an uproar all throughout the countryside. It's just not possible." But the husband said, "Oh, we thought about that. We have relatives in America. We can send her there. She'll start a new life. Everything will be fine." But the priest said, "No, no matter how far away America is, it's still part of this world. But the fairies, they're part of another world. So it's okay if she's there, but she can't come out. That's just how it has to be." So they left with heavy hearts. And there was a bench in front of the church, and they sat there and they talked and they thought and they kept trying to figure out, is there some way around this? There has to be a way. And they tried for a very long time to figure out, what are we going to do? Go after the loved one or heed the church that guides us from cradle to grave? Loved one, church. Loved one, church. And in the end, they turned around and went home. Now, the mother sat down and wrote the hardest letter she ever had to write. It wasn't long before it arrived at the farmer's. He put it on the table, and that night he waited for the young woman. And in she came, graceful as ever, her beautiful hair glowing in that moonlight. She saw the letter and she read it. She folded it up, put it in her apron pocket, and turned around and left. On my own am I, all alone I cry. No one will rescue me. No one will rescue me. And she went back to the list. The fairies hadn't noticed her missing. Pretty soon, one of them offered her some bread, and for the first time, she accepted it. She smelled it. It smelled pretty good. She took a bite. Was crunchy, a little bit sweet, a little bit savory. And she smiled. The end.
Oh my goodness. What a beautiful story. And you told it in such a spellbinding way. And the song and everything. Oh my gosh. That was
Thank
just
you.
amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. Yeah, I'll re-listen to that another time because it's just spellbinding. Wonderful. Wow. Whew. Excellent. So after that, we were in Ireland, and now we're going to go and visit Renu in India, and she's going to tell us another story. Renu, welcome to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. My story is called Connections and it's written by me. Sharada Nair was sitting at a table facing the long, tall, floor-length windows which overlooked the front yard. All the bushes were in bloom. She had a vantage view of the small gate as well as the big gate. But she was in a deep meditative silence. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't really looking at the gate or the street beyond. As she went deeper into her meditation, she closed her eyes. And she failed to notice the young man who was walking up and down the street, rather aimlessly. But he wasn't aimless at all. He was just looking at all the houses. Most of the houses were large, and they either had a watchman or a dog. Finally, he came and stood in front of Sharada's house. He stood there for quite some time. It was dusk, and as the dusk fell into darkness, he plucked up his courage and opened the gate. As he walked in, he stood behind a pillar. Maybe she had opened her eyes and seen him. But there was nothing, no sound at all from inside. Only the porch light was on, no car inside. He had noticed a couple leaving the house a couple of hours earlier. After that, there hadn't been any activity of any sort. Just elderly lady sitting there, looking, seemingly to look out of the windows. The power went off, and he thought, this is good luck. He went towards the grill gate. It was not latched. He was surprised to see the door was ajar. There was a faint light coming in from the next door. Pushed open the door gently, soundlessly. There's no noise, there's no sound from the elderly lady. She seemed to be muttering, "Ah, these power cuts, the government, what do they think of themselves? The minute the summer is on, they decide to cut the power. Oh, wonder when it's going to come back. Hits. Can't even sit in peace. At least the fan was keeping me cool. What to do? Then suddenly she heard a voice. Don't move. I've come to steal from you. What? Who are you? Come closer. This power cut. Can't even make out who you are. I said I come to steal. Don't move or make a noise. Else I'll cut your throat. You think I'm scared of you? Come forward, I said, and sit in front of me. Go on. Okay, okay. The voice didn't seem that commanding anymore. And slowly the young man shuffled across and sat in front of Sharda. Sharda lifted the small light she had and tried peering at his face, but she couldn't really make out his features. He seemed young, that's all she could make out. So, she said, continuing to fan herself, tell me, what's your story? Everybody has a story, and I love stories. I always listen to people talk, They love to talk, and I love to listen. And I made so many friends because of my nature. My family doesn't like it one bit, but I like to make connections. So tell me, what brought you here? This seems to be your first time. You don't seem very confident at all, young man. Yes, it is my first time. So tell me, what's your story? My parents live in the village. I lived there too. But they insisted on selling all their land and sending me to the city to study engineering of all things. I hate engineering. I wanted to learn music, but they said I must get a job that I could support them. So I came here, I went to college, I studied, but some of the subjects I couldn't understand. And I started failing some of the papers. Finally, by the fourth year, I had about 18 papers to write. I had to push myself. I worked day and night, and finally cleared all my exams, but with very, very less marks. I've been hunting for a job for the last 4 months, and every time I go to a company, they say, young man, you're not good enough. We can't take you. What do I do? Every day I get a phone call. They gave me this small phone and said, what's happening? Have you got a job? Are you going to send us some money? I was desperate. So I thought I would steal and send them the money. I see. So you thought stealing was a very easy option. And you decided to steal. And you found me sitting all by myself. What do you think? The world isn't easy for anybody, my dear boy. It's a tough life and you need to deal with it. You want to learn singing? It costs a lot of money. You need to find the right teacher. And it takes years to learn music and years to become popular enough to make money. And what would your parents have been doing till then? Tell me. They did the right thing by sending you to study engineering. Get a job, you can send them the money. And when you earn enough, you can afford voice lessons. Then you can start singing too. You think our life was easy? When I grew up, I had no parents. I was living with my aunt. I had to leave the house as soon as I finished my teacher's training and I got a job. My husband, he had just passed out of law school. He was struggling. We met, we fell in love, we got married, and we lived a tough life. We had a very small one-room place. And we both struggled. And slowly, things started improving because we were working hard. And now, after 10, 15 years, we finally had money. We bought a small plot of land, we built this house, and our twins were born. You said you saw a couple leaving the house? Those were my twins. They too wanted to learn dance. They didn't want to study. But I somehow cajoled them, wheedled them into choosing something which was good. My daughter became a doctor. My son became an engineer. Both of them are happy now. And they're learning to dance. They're working and dancing. You could do the same. Get a job and start singing. But I'm not able to get a job. Okay, I'll do something for you. She picked up her phone and dialed. Hello, Surabhi. How are you? Yes, everything is fine here. Ah, I see. No, the twins are here just on a short visit. Okay. By the way, Surabhi, listen, last week you told me that there's a vacancy in your office. Yeah, in your computer company. Is there still a vacancy? There is? Very good. I have a young man here. He's my friend's son. Could you please interview him tomorrow? What time? 11. Oh, thank you so much, Surabhi. I'll catch up with you sometime, okay? Bye-bye. What? Why would you want to do that for me? It's not for you, young man. It's for your family, for your parents who are suffering in that village, depending on you, pinning all their hopes on you. Tears started spilling out of the young man's eyes. What is your name, by the way? Pranav, he managed to reply. So Pranav, tomorrow, wear a good shirt, good pant, go and see my friend and talk to her nicely. She won't look at your mouth. She's only interested in hard work and sincerity. You do your hard work and help out your parents, okay? Just then the power came back. I can see from your face that you're very innocent, my dear. I'm glad that my friend is able to help. Just then the bell rang because Pranav had shut the door behind him. Go and open the door quickly. My husband will raise an alarm if it doesn't open immediately. Pranav ran and opened it. An older man walked in. Who are you, young man? Who is the Shadda? Oh, that's my friend's son, Pranav, Dinesh. He just came for a visit. I see. So, Pranav, why don't you stay for dinner with us? No, sir. I think I'll make a move. Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir. No. You're coming here for the first time. You stay and have a meal with us, young man. Just give me 5 minutes. I need to refresh myself. He disappeared into the bedroom. And Pranav came back and sat down. Dinesh was back after a few minutes. Sharda, are you ready? Yes, Dinesh, I am. Came towards her, pulled out the handles, and wheeled her towards the dining room. Pranav's tears flowed faster than ever. Thank you.
Anu, thank you. Another lovely story. I just, I love the beginning when you think that the old woman, the poor woman, is going to be a victim, and she's just got so much vim.
So did I use all your suggestions, Katie? Did I use yours and Vicky's suggestions?
Say that again.
Did I make it better? Did I make the story better?
Oh, it's wonderful, and the dialogue is great, and you do it seamlessly. It's very, very good. Thank you so much. I think after all these great stories, we should take a break. It's about 10 to 8, so why don't we take a 7-minute break, sort of get back here just before 8 o'clock? Does that sound good? And I shall pause the recording. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So now we're going to have announcements, and then after the announcements, we'll have the prompt. So Meg, would you like to start?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Once again, now help me out here, guys, because I did not see a May genre on the SAC website. Did they do
It's
something
tomorrow.
different? I think they might.
It's
What?
It's tomorrow. It's Legends.
Okay, good. Vicky, I can always depend on you to fill in those old gaps for me. That's great. Okay, so that's tomorrow at 7, and they're streaming, on Zoom, correct?
Yes.
And you can always go to the SAC website and pick up the link. And I think they still register for that, but go ahead. And if you're a SAC member, it's free. So go for it. And then June's coming up, and this is one of my favorite genres, which is fantasy and fairy tales. So that will be a lot of fun.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. June is Juneteenth celebration. They moved it.
Oh, I'm all out of sync.
Yeah,
The fantasy and fairy
fantasy.
tales was in March.
Yeah.
So
Say
it's
again?
Juneteenth celebration.
Juneteenth. Well, that makes sense. Maybe you can just go to the SAC website and see if they have things that are updated on this. But support genre storytelling. It's a lot of fun. And if you feel like you would like to tell a story at one of the genre storytelling, you can contact Vicky. Okay, we're having a little transition here, guys. So I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly which person, but you need to be nominated by a swap, and we're glad to do that. Just contact Vicky, and she'll get the message out to Ed, who puts this on, and you can tell stories at the genre. I also wanted to mention the Sierra Storytelling Festival that's coming up. Yes, it's a long way away, Grass Valley, but it is certainly worth it. It's such a beautiful venue out in a grove of trees with a stage that looks almost out into a pasture, and it's very lovely. They have a lot of good tellers. Actually, some of the tellers that we saw at the Bay Area Storytelling will be there. And that is on June 28th at the end of the month. There is early bird tickets until June 1st. So, and it's really pretty reasonable. The full cost for pretty much everything except for one workshop is 105, no, 98 for the early bird and 105 after, but you can also opt for Friday evening, Saturday day, or the Saturday evening. And those are all $35 a piece, except for the evening, which is 38. And then there's also just a few dollars more if you sign up after that date. Ethnitech will be there. Diane Ferlat will be there. There's a whole list of people, and you can find them also on, I think SAC will have a link for them, so you can go directly to their website and check all that out. And then I wish Brandon was here because he could tell us a little bit more about that. On July 8th, it's the San Francisco Free Folk Festival storytelling event, which is presented by SAC, and that will be in Golden Gate Park from noon to 2. And Brandon and Dana Sherry will be there. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening this summer, plus swap every second Tuesday of the month. So that's my announcements.
Thank you, Meg.
I would just like to announce that the Bay Area Storytelling Festival was a wonderful success. We had a really good turnout, and the tellers apparently were the best lineup of tellers they've had in years and years. They were fabulous. They were international. There was taiko dance, taiko drumming, there was dance. It was just amazing. And of course, Brandon was there too. But it was a full 10 hours of storytelling. And so when it comes around again, if nothing else, buy the ticket for the recordings, because you can just zoom around here, there, and everywhere. But if you show up, you get the recordings for free. So anyway, it was absolutely worth it. And hopefully they'll have it up here again. Also, I wanted to mention we do have something called office hours. And what that is a chance to come and practice your story. It will probably be Katie and I, and you get a half-hour slot to tell your story. And we will give you some feedback. If you have questions, we can help you with that. It's on the first Tuesday of every month. So that would be the Tuesday right before Do Tell. So Do Tell Swap is on the second Tuesday of every month, and the office hours is the first Tuesday, which would be the 4th of June. And if you are interested, contact me or Katie, and we will line you up with a slot. We had 3 people. We have room for 2 or 3 people per time, and we had all 3 people. We were filled up. So anytime just before the weekend, before the first Tuesday. So, sometime in the next couple of weeks, if you're interested, let us know and we'll put you in a slot.
I got a lot out of it, Vicky. It's worth doing.
Thank
Thank
you. There's a testimonial.
I swear on the Bible.
I'm glad that you guys have had such success with that. I remember when we first talked about it. I do want to say that it's possible that if you guys are interested and have a few coins in your piggy bank, you might want to go to the Bay Area Storytelling Festival website, because I think you can still purchase the virtual. You might still be able to purchase the virtual show because they're going to have it open for several months. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the storytelling was just extraordinary. Really
Oh,
good.
it was fabulous. You might look at it. I thought it said closed registration, that registration was closed. I would have thought they'd sell tickets too, but
Yeah,
check it
I-
out.
I'm not sure. I just don't know if it's okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Maybe if we could ask Shags, and if it is available, then Meg could send out an email.
Mhm.
Right.
Does that
Right.
make sense? Or maybe
Yeah.
can you check that out, Meg? Or
Yeah,
that would be
that sounds like a good idea. Why don't I'll go ahead and I'll be the one to email Shags and find out so that I can send an email out as a follow-up. That would be a really great follow-up for all of our members, and you
Yeah.
guys are on my email list, so you'll get that info too.
It
We'll
would
take
be a
care of
good idea actually for SAC in general, because then they will get more people interested in coming next year.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vicky.
We'll
Moving
have to haul Shri and Renu over here.
I'm sorry.
We'll let you stay at our houses.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Okay, so now it's time for the prompt. So this is a question, and we get to introduce ourselves, and then we answer the question, and I shall start. And the question is, if your pet could talk, what would they say? I know. So it could be a pet that you have right now, or one you had years ago, or it could be a friend's pet. Or if you don't have one, I can see Beth has one. So I'm going to start. Hi, my name is Katie Mangan. I live in Santa Rosa. And if my pet, and I'm going to talk about my horse when I was a teenager called Bracken Hill. Now, if Bracken Hill could talk, Bracken Hill would say, oh my gosh, it was just the wonderful life. I mean, I had this beautiful stable with fresh straw that you would put out all the time and clean it up in the morning. Great food, hay, good stuff to eat, clean water. And then there was a meadow for me to go out and play in. And then during the days, during the school holidays, I would groom the horse in the morning, and in the afternoon go out riding throughout the countryside with my friend or by myself. And I think that's where I get a lot of my Eduardo stories from, because on our rides, we would meet the gamekeeper and all things like that. It was just, actually, it was the most wonderful life for myself. So I was so pleased that my horse enjoyed it too. So I'm going to pass it on. Shall we go? Vicky, do you want to highlight people? Is that going to be easier for you to do?
No.
Or we'll go to Beth. But
Unmute yourself.
Okay, yes, we've had many pets in my life. I've had parakeets and rabbit, and these cats are foster cats. If anybody wants two gray cats, they're really quite lovely. But eventually they have to go somewhere. But I think the pet that we had was really an old soul dressed up as a dog. And he was about 110 pounds, I think. He came out as a kind of a flat coat retriever, black dog, with no drooling. He didn't drool or do anything like that, but he knew exactly if we were going to have an argument, he would step right between us. He never left the property if we said stay, even without, any kind of, he's just an amazing old soul, I think. He didn't live very long. He had a heart thing, I guess, and he had his favorite toys. So he will always kind of be in our hearts, even though he was with us a short time. Right now we have the animals in the house with their hair, and we have foxes, and we have deer eating everything in my yard, and we have badger out in the neighborhood that digs these holes. It's very dangerous. You do not go outside at night without a flashlight. So I just feel like animals belong here, and just they're not all my pets, but it's truly impossible not to get really attached to an animal that lives with you for a while. So, but that story of the horse, I never got my own horse, but I just love hearing about someone else who had a horse. I've been riding, but I haven't had my own horse. My sister got one. Am I jealous or what? So, thank you.
Vicky,
Okay, well, we have a dog and a cat. And the question was, what would your pet say to you if they could speak English? The
Feed
dog
me.
and the cat in unison would be saying, "You gonna eat that? What's that? Can I have that? You gonna eat that? Wait, is the cat getting that? Can I have that? Are you gonna eat that?" It would be all day long. That's what they'd be doing.
Vicky, that's such a coincidence. I have a dog and a cat too.
Vicky, what would your pet say to you?
Sorry, were you speaking to me, Katie?
To Genevieve?
Okay.
Hello, what? Me? Okay, Chipper's right here. Well, I was kind of a little goofy when you first asked that question because I thought one thing Chipper would say is, well, don't be surprised if I jump off the bed in the middle of the night because don't forget what you had for dinner because I'm being reminded of it right now. Anyway, no, but I think he would say, I'm so glad that Noreen came to help take care of you when you had your surgery. Because remember, she left a note on the refrigerator that said, please pay attention to me. Chipper first, number 1.
Thank you. Meg, what would your pet say to you if it could talk?
Well, I have a goat for a pet now, and he says to me, "Where's my treats? Where's my treats? Rub my head, rub my head. Where's the hay? Where's the hay?" He's all about his own comforts, but you know what? He's very sweet. He always comes running, especially I just opened the back door and he can hear that squeak and he comes running up so he can say, "Where's my treats? Where's my treats? Rub my head, rub my head. Give me hay, give me hay." And it's really great for me. I love him so much.
Thank you. Laura, what would your pet say to you?
I realize I'm ditzy, and I appreciate that you are patient with me, and I don't want you to ever leave.
3, what would your pet say to you?
I had a dog called Tara. It was a beagle, and we unfortunately lost her in an accident. Tara means star in English. I'm so a selenophile. My elder one, I named Moon, so we named her Tara. Tara would say, "Shri, you're a great chef. You make such lovely food and feed me. But along that, why don't you come run with me? You and I, both of us need to lose some weight after eating all that yummy food. Come, let's go for a run. Stop being lazy and stop reading stories and telling stories all sitting in front of the laptop. Come, let's go out and for some fresh air." That's what she would say.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Sharon, what would your pet say to you?
my gray cat that looks kind of like Beth's. And I've moved away, but what he would say is, bring me the food and nobody gets hurt.
Right. Renew, what would your pet say to you?
I think our dog would say, "You guys eat all the time. Why don't you give me some of it too?" So we feed her only twice a day. And the cat would probably say, our cat would probably say, "Well, why do you keep your dog downstairs? I'd like to have the run of the entire house." Our cat's name is Nala and our dog's name is Bagheera. Both are
Oh.
adopted.
Thank you. Elaine, what would your pet say to you?
I love you.
You're muted. My name is Elaine and I live in Santa Rosa. I've had many pets, but one of the sweetest pets I had was a little Yorkie that was 11 years old and had little tumors on her mammary glands. So I only had her for 2.5 years, but she demanded nothing. Just one look at you and you had to reach down and pet her or pick her up and love her. She was a heart of gold, good company, and the sweetest thing I've ever seen in an animal. And I think pets round out our households. They are the children or the second children to any home. And demanding they may be, but they give more than you could ever imagine.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
By the
Fina,
way, Elaine, Renew has sent you a message in the chat.
What's that?
There's a message for you in the chat from Renew.
Oh, I'm not sure how to even get to the chat.
so it says, Elaine, I loved your story. I love animal stories. Is there a link for the story? I would love to retell it if you don't mind. That's from-
Actually, I put that story together when I was at Dominican College getting my certificate in storytelling. We were told, we're given a little piece of paper and it had a prompt on it for a story. So I was told, put together a 5-minute story on a trickster who switches tails on dogs' coats, and that's why they sniff each other's tail when they meet. So I made up the story. So it's my story.
Fina, what would your pet say to you?
He would say, Vina, when you had cats before, I know that you were working. And so you weren't as available to those cats as you are to me. He would say, I really love it that you're here almost every day, almost all day, and you brush me in the morning, and I can sleep with you at nap time, even though you won't let me sleep with you at nighttime because I know I'm still a little rambunctious at 1 year old. But he would say, I'm a lucky kitty.
Oh, the lucky kitty. Thank you, Vina. Gay, what would your pet say to you?
Well, my cat isn't around anymore, but I'm sure he would say something about being thankful about being able to share time with me on the planet while he was here. He was a very kind soul.
Thank you. Bev, what would your pet or pets say to you?
Okay. I have a brother and a sister who I've had, and they're 12 years old. And 3 years ago, I ruffled everyone's feathers by adopting a cat off the streets of a local town called Waterville. And they would say, We were so happy, just the two of us. Why did you have to bring Sophie into us? All she does is chase us and wants to scratch her eyes, and she makes us miserable because she eats all of our food besides hers. And I would say, get over it. She's here for good.
Okay, thank you, Bev. Deb. Deb, you were there. Now you've gone. Oh, there you are.
Oh,
Can
I'm
you-
here.
you
I'm
un-
still here.
Deb, can
I
you-
was there, but
Deb.
I dropped my phone. Hi, I do not have thanks for the prompt. I do not have a pet at this time in my life. My husband said he wouldn't mind an ant farm. You can tell he's not like into furry animals running around. I personally would like to, at this point, try a dog because I have a friend who has a Labrador. And every time that dog comes and sees me, Goose, I think his name is Goose, and he wags his long tail and he barks and he comes up to me and he's a medium young dog, and he gets under my hands and he licks my hands, and he has helped me overcome my fear of dogs because I never had a dog as a child, just cats, and I always thought a big dog, and you hear they're a little dangerous, and I think he just says hello, 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 oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That's all he's conveyed to me so far, and that's enough.
Oh, thank you. That's perfect. All right. Great sharing, everybody. Thank you. And now we'll get back to the stories. And next up is Sharon Elwell. Welcome to the stage. He's going to find you.
Okay, I will wait.
There
We are. I told this story a while ago, but it just occurred to me again the other day, and I thought this is one of those moments that I really enjoyed in my life. I was working the reception desk at Memorial Hospital in Santa Rosa, and it was a beautiful sunny day. And a woman came down the elevator and across the foyer to me. And she was obviously very upset. And she had in her hand a beautiful orchid that was wrapped in the kind of paper you get in a floral shop. And she was so upset that I, in my clever diplomatic way, said, "What's the matter with you?" You never do that. But anyway, and she said, "Somebody gave me this orchid." And I thought, isn't that a good thing? It's beautiful. And she said, "It's the worst thing that could possibly happen to me." Do you know how to take care of an orchid? And I said, no, I didn't. And she said, do you think they live in regular soil? They do not. They do not thrive in potting soil because the pH is neutral. They have to have acidic soil. Do you think you can water them like a regular plant? You cannot. They must be watered in such a way that it drains immediately or they get root rot. And you have to check the roots. If they're white, it's all right. If it's gray, you're in trouble. So you need one of those pots that have holes all around on the side. You don't want a regular pot. Do you think they can live just anywhere? They cannot. They need an air that is actually between 40% and 70% humid. Do you know what the humidity is in your house? I'm guessing you do not. Do you think they can live in any temperature? They can't. They must be between 62 at night and 80 in the daytime, not under 62, not anything below 80 in the daytime. Do you think you can fertilize them with the same Miracle-Gro you use on your regular plants? You cannot. It has to be orchid-specific fertilizer. Do you think you can prune them with the same shears you use on your regular plants? You cannot.
You must sterilize the shears with which you prune them, lest any bit of another plant come into contact with this creature. Now, I have a husband, I have a job, I have children, I have a life. I cannot, I will not take on the responsibility of this. And she actually began to cry. It was tragic to watch. So I said, just leave it here on the counter, and someone will come through here that loves orchids and would love to take this one. Now, that was fairly early in the day, and as the day went on, dozens of people stopped to talk at that desk, and nobody paid the slightest bit of attention to the orchid. I moved it a little closer to me to try to make it clear, take a look at this, and nobody did. And then I was beginning to get worried. Did she say that you fertilize it at quarter strength twice a week, or was it half strength 4 times a week? What did she say the temperature had to be? And what was the humidity again? And if I have to do this, do I need a horticulture degree? What am I going to do? And just then, a little lady, and when I say little, I mean she couldn't see over the counter very well, came in just in the last like 15 minutes of my shift. And she was furious. And instead of hello, she said, I hate this place. And in my diplomatic way, I said, what's the matter? And she said, I have been on the road for over an hour trying to get here because my GPS does not acknowledge construction zones or one-way streets. And I hate this. Now, most of the people who live in Santa Rosa kind of love it. And I found that very shocking. And so I said to her, are you new here? And she said, yes, I've only been here a few weeks. Where did you live before? And she said, I come from Hawaii. And it was paradisiacal. How I loved it there. I had my own beautiful patio with hundreds of beautiful plants, orchids just like that one there. You know the end of that story. And all 3 of us lived happily ever after.
That's wonderful. Thank you for retelling it, because I remember that story and it's so good to hear it again. Thank you so much. Our next teller is Shri. Welcome Shri to the stage.
Good evening, good night, whatever is the time of the country or place you're in. And for me, it's morning over here. And thank you, Renu, for introducing me to the stories. It's such sweet souls, everybody. This is my first time here to share a story. This is a folk tale. And this folktale is there across the world. It could be an American folktale, it could be Indian with little variations. And I titled it Doing Your Bit. Long, long ago, very long ago, maybe you were not born, I was not born, your parents, your grandparents, my grandparents, no one was born. But the earth was green and luscious, and there were forests everywhere, which are sadly dwindling now. It could be the Amazon dense forest, or it could be the Dandakaranya forest in India. It was so dense, they say, and dark. The forest was dark because there was foliage of leaves on every tree. All the trees had dark green leaves and all. They said as dark that you couldn't spot a crow, and as dense that even ants found it difficult to penetrate. But there were trees of all kinds and blooms of all shades, orange, lavender, pink, yellow. And there were berries and fruits of all kinds too. And when the forest is so generous with blooms and berries and all the animals would definitely live there because they had abundance of food. Animals and birds. There were animals like rabbits, deers, giraffes, and you name them. And there were birds. Birds as tiny as the hummingbird, as big as the eagle. All kinds of birds lived there too. And the weather was sometimes pleasant. The trees were swaying in soft wind, and the birds were cooing and just nibbling on some or the other berry and singing to their heart's content. Sometimes it was pouring down with a lot of downpour and power, as though somebody had opened taps up there in the sky. And that time, under the dense leaves, the birds rested, waiting for the rain to go away. And seasons passed, and it was one hot summer. And then suddenly, it was a stormy weather. All the trees started swaying wildly, and there was a little shower. And in the scorching heat, suddenly, when there was this little shower, all the birds felt, it's so cool now. But their happiness was short-lived. There was suddenly thunder and lightning, and after all this hot spell of summer, that lightning spark struck one tree and it ignited a flame. And as all forest fires, the fire started spreading rapidly. And all the animals started running, helter skelter. Oh my God, they were so scared of the fire. Of course, any animal or bird would be scared of the fire. They were feeling so sad, they're losing their homes and then their nest, all these birds. But in Hindi, they say, Jaan bachi to sab bachi, means if life is there, we can build our nest again. Life is precious. They started flying and out of fear, and as they were flying far and far and further, the fire is approaching. And the animals are running leaps and bounds, the jaguars, the leopards. And suddenly one jaguar saw up. It could see a small hummingbird flying, but it was not flying in the direction of everyone. It was flying in the opposite direction. And it was so astonished. And then it thought, no, let me go. My life is precious, and the jaguar started running again. And to its surprise, it saw the same little hummingbird fly towards that direction and again the opposite direction towards the fire. This happened to and fro for some time, and the jaguar then finally said, "Oh, hummingbird, what are you doing? Are you gone crazy? Why are you going towards the fire?" And the hummingbird replied, "I'm holding a little bit of water in my beak and putting out the fire." And the jaguar said, "Are you crazy? It's so bizarre. You're such a tiny bird with such a tiny beak. You can hardly have one drop of water. Can you really put out that fire? You've gone nuts." And the hummingbird said, "I'm doing my bit. This forest is my mother. This forest has fed me. This forest has given me home like a mother's lap." Okay, this forest is your mother. So as a child, what else did you do? Even I did my bit. I pollinated all the, flowers and made the forest grow. I did my bit. But today, I'm doing my last bit. I just can't leave my mother and go. Okay, and when this hummingbird was saying all this, who do you think was passing above? The forest spirits. They heard this earnestness in the hummingbird, and suddenly they all said, "Let's do something." And there was such a torrential downpour and the whole fire got up and the forest was safe. So in Native American grandmothers tell this, I heard, to their children, saying that when you want to believe in miracles, don't forget to do your own little bit, and then miracles will happen. And that's the end of my story. Thank you.
Really, thank you. Such a beautiful story.
I would
Thank-
love to know any constructive or any feedback from any one of you. Thank you.
can put it in the chat, but just beautiful descriptions of the forest in the beginning. You just said it so beautifully. And then of course with the horror and the terror of the fire that so many of us have experienced. So thank you again. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So now, Deb, would you like to tell your story, or Meg, would you like to be next?
I can go next if you'd like, although
Yeah,
that is a hard story to follow, Sri. Beautifully, beautifully descriptive, and just I want to go to that garden. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Well, my story is also a folk tale. It is from a book I got called Norwegian Folk Tales of Aberjonsen and Moe, who were kind of the Norwegian Brothers Grimm. They went around and they collected these stories. And this one is called The Three Ants. Far away in the deep woods, a long way north in Norway, there was a man who was a hunter, and he had a daughter who was beautiful and fair. And all he did was teach her how to feather a bird and fry it up. And so she decided it would be best for her to go out into the world and find some folks who could teach her how to make a living. And so she set out, and soon she came to the royal palace, and there she stayed. Now she became the favorite of the queen, and all the other maids were very, very jealous of this status. And so they went to the queen and they told her that the girl had boasted that she could spin a pound of flax in 24 hours. Now, the queen was quite a fan of needlework. And so she went to the girl and she said, I heard that you could do this. And so I want you to show me. And the girl did not dare to say refuse. And so she said, well, just give me a chamber of my own to work in, and I will do this. So that night she went to her own chamber, and there was the spinning wheel, and she was by herself. When she looked at the spinning wheel, she'd never seen such a thing in her whole life. And so she did not know what to do, and she started to cry. And then an old woman came into the room, and she said, what are you crying about? Well, the girl did not want to tell her why she was crying, but she finally did. And the old woman said, oh, I can solve your problem. All you have to do is promise me that you will call me out. You will greet me at your wedding. And the girl agreed. And the old lady said, go lie down on that pallet and go to sleep. And she did. Well, the next morning when she woke up, there was a bundle of flax all spun out, so beautiful and even. It was lovely to behold. And she took it to the queen, and oh, the queen was really, really happy. She was very impressed. And so the girl became even more of a favorite. Well, the maids were not happy, and they were very jealous. And so they went back to the queen and they said, oh, the girl is now boasting that she can take the flax and weave it into a beautiful fabric. Oh, said the queen. Okay. And she told the girl to go ahead and go back into her chamber that evening and to spin or to weave the flax into fabric. Again, the girl went in and she saw that loom and she thought, I've never seen anything like that. And she began to cry. And sure enough, another old lady came into the chamber and she said, why are you carrying on this way? And the girl told her what she was being challenged to do. And the old lady said, well, I can help you with your problem, but you must promise to call me out when I come to your wedding. And so the girl promised. She went and laid down and slept. And the next morning when she woke up, there was a beautiful bundle of linen, so fine and soft. She took it to the queen, and oh, the queen was so very, very impressed. Well, the maids were not happy, and they were really getting desperate. And so finally they went to the queen and they said, the girl has boasted that that she can sew the fabric into shirts in only 24 hours. And so the queen told the girl to go back into the chamber and to make the shirts that night. Well, again, the girl had never sewn a seam in her life. And so she sat down and she began to cry. And another old lady came into the chamber. Why are you crying? She said. Well, the girl told her what was going on. And again, the old lady said, well, I can solve your problem, but you must call me out at your wedding. And so the girl agreed. She laid down to sleep. And the next morning, there was a bundle of shirts, and they were the finest shirts anyone had ever seen, with the straightest seams and the closest stitches. And now the queen, oh, she was just thrilled. And she said to the girl, you know, I really think of you like a daughter. I'm sure if we asked the prince, he would be happy to marry you. And then you would never have to ask others to come in and do work, because you can spin and weave and sew, and you'll be set. Well, the prince was very taken with this young girl, and he had already fallen in love with her. So the wedding was arranged right away. And when they were sitting at the table with the wedding feast around them, everyone was having a great time, when an ugly, ugly old woman came into the hall. And immediately the bride stood up and said, good day, Aunt. Well, the prince looked at this old woman, so ugly. She had a nose as long as 6 feet. It was so long that she had to tuck it into her belt to keep it out of the way. And the prince said, now, is this really your aunt? Oh, yes, she is. And so the prince said, okay, and invited her to sit at the table. Well, then, right after that, another old woman came into the hall, and oh my goodness, she was even uglier. And she had such a large behind that she couldn't hardly even get in the door. And the bride stood up and she said, good day, Aunt. And the prince said, is this your aunt too? And the girl said, oh, yes, she is. And so the prince said, okay, well, come and sit at our table. A little while later, a third old woman came into the hall, and oh my, she was the ugliest one of all, and so disgusting, because she had big red eyes that were just constantly running and weeping. The girl stood up and said, good day, Aunt. And the prince said, is this your aunt too? And the girl said, oh, yes, she is. And so the prince invited her to sit at the table. Well, the prince was wondering, what is going on here? And finally, he couldn't stand it anymore. And he said, I don't understand this. You are so lovely and beautiful, and your aunts, well, they're disgusting. They're vile. They're ugly. How did this ever happen? And so one of the old women spoke up and she said, well, when I was young, I was as beautiful as your bride, but I have spent so many long years bending and spinning on the spinning wheel that my nose has just got longer and longer and longer. Oh, so then the second old woman spoke up and she said, well, I have spent since my childhood in front of the loom on the bench, sliding back and forth and back and forth. And that is why my backside is so broad and so swollen. Then the third aunt spoke up and she said, I've been sewing all my life from day and night, and my eyes have become so sore and so red as you see them now, and so weeping from all of those years of sewing. Well, the prince said, I see. I am glad that I found out about this. If that is how people become so ugly and vile, then my bride will never spin, weave, or sew the rest of her life. And that is how the princess remained so beautiful throughout her life. So snip, snap, snout, however ventruta, which is this tale's told out in Norwegian.
Oh, Meg, that was wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, well told. Love it. Thank you. Great descriptions. It's flowed beautifully. Awesome. Thank you so much. You should be telling us stories more often.
I love the folk tales. They're fun.
Good. Well,
We've heard some good ones tonight.
and yours is right up there with everyone else. So you need to get some
Thank you.
more
Thanks.
going. Great. Thank you. Deb, are you ready to tell your story?
I might be. I didn't tell it through. I had such some things came up this afternoon, and so I didn't tell it through. But I was thinking about it all day, and so I might be able to do it. I don't know. I guess it could go. It seems like a summer story. It's almost summer. I just want to thank that last story of the old women who helped her. It's just like, you must call me out at your wedding was the agreement. And it's sort of like, if you bring that which is you're afraid of to the table and say, this is my aunt, somehow like all goes better. It's like what I thought maybe was the moral of the story. Anyway, I just want to comment. That was so many good tales tonight. Okay. I was wondering, did Genevieve want to go? She had a story and you said she had something.
Well, Vicky also. Vicky, I think
No, we don't have time. That's
Vicky?
fine.
So, Deb,
Well,
I mean, it's up to you. Do you feel
5 hours.
is this the story that you practiced with Vicky and I?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, more or less.
oh,
I
yeah.
wanted to get around a little. I'll just tell. Okay. When I was about 9 years old, sometimes we would go to visit our friend's house. We had our parents had good friends, and our friends they had a house out in the country, and we had a backyard. We were very lucky. We had a backyard and places to run and trees to climb. But our neighbors, or not our neighbors, our friends had this house out in the country, and they had dogs, and we did not have a dog. They had rabbits that they had, and they went hunting with the dogs, and they had a swamp out in the back of the house, and they had lakes that the children could walk to and go swimming. They had a lake, a little river. They could go fishing. They could do all the things I wanted to do when I was 9 years old and 10 years old and 8 years old, and all those years. I had wanted nothing more than to be out in the country, to do tomboyish things, they called them then, horsey things. And there were two children in the family. One was a boy closer to my age, and one was a girl. She's about 3 or 4 years older than me. And he was a quiet boy and was not all that friendly, and not unfriendly, but he didn't like girls. And like when you went to peek in and say hello, like when our families were getting done, he would like slam the door in my face or some kind of thing. And I remember he used to have boys, all the boys, my brothers collected and his friends collected bottle caps. Like they might have 100 or 20, but his bottle caps, it was like, dang, when you saw his, it was like 2,000 bottle caps he would have. I thought that was sort of heavy, 2,000 bottle caps. Anyway, he was good looking, but did not like to socialize much. And the older girl was just older, so she was, 14-year-old world, and you're like 10-year-old world. It's a little different, but she was kind of cool. She was very cool, and she was a Girl Scout. She was very mature for a girl her age, and sometimes she'd be mistaken for a young woman, like by my high school brother. And she was in the Girl Scouts, and she had a sash of merit badges. And she had a lot of merit badges, and they lived out in the country. And it's like, I think she was in the 4-H club, and she had, merit badges and craftsmanship and whittling and horseback riding and archery and all the cool things you wanted to do. She could do them out there because she was out in that and had the resources. And this little one, little cross on it, and she had all these things. And so anyway, we had a week we were out there. They were, had us, they welcomed us into their family. They had a piano, they had fun things, okay? And they knew how to make things. They made their own clothes, they made their own jam, that sort of thing. And I, in the back to nature movement of the 1970s, we all started doing this. It got very popular to make our own jam or try to make your own bread. But these folks were doing it way back in the 60s. And that was it was an older fashioned American way of life. We went swimming one day out on the lake with them, and we were told, look out, be careful out there. So I remember my mother used to once said something, kids can drown out in that lake. Some boy drowned out in the lake out there last year. And so I was just careful about it. And I did not know how to swim. And I think my little sister, she could swim a little better than me, but they towed us out. In those days, we didn't have all the protections that kids do today. We didn't have like life, saving jackets and all these things, but we did have was the older girl. And the older girl, who was 14, was responsible, and she knew how to swim, and she knew how to take care of the kids pretty well. We had maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 kids out there, and she was pulling it out onto the raft. And I decided I would try to swim. And I tried, and I chose to swim towards the inflatable raft of her younger brother. And I would grab that raft. So I took out there, and I'm going and going and going and getting, and I just grabbed onto it, and his leg just shoved me off. And I was like grabbing and trying to swim with both my arms as hard as I could and as hard as I could. And I was looking up at the light coming down through the seaweed, and I was sinking. And it occurred to me, this must be what the kids who drowned saw when they were drowning. And I looked for a moment at the beauty of that while I was swimming. I don't know how long. Maybe I took in some water. With those kinds of times in life, one doesn't think about stuff. But suddenly everything burst apart because I was being burst up through the water, and I was like a fish being thrown up into the air. And I was being saved by the older sister. And that red cross on her sash was her Red Cross life-saving badge she had just earned. And to this day, I always think, some of those little things that seem so, responsibility and perfunctory and doing what you're supposed to do, and like someone said, doing your bit or something, I don't know, like you never know what doing your bit and being like it's the word I wanted to say, proactive in life, doing those little learning, studying, and doing those little things, how important those can be. So I hung on to the pier, shaking like a drowned rat for the rest of the time out there, and we came back in to land. And I just was reflecting what that proactive people who take Red Cross life-saving classes and swim and do the work to learn how to swim a whole mile, because you had to swim a whole mile to take those courses. So throughout life, it gave me inspiration, because I was alive, to be inspired, and it gave me inspiration to keep going and do things, go to college, and enjoy learning. And I have stayed kind of in the 1 foot in the camp of learning most of my life because of that. And I think nowadays, just whether people are saving people from drowning, or they're just turning their high beams on at night when they see that little thing out there that they're not quite sure what it is in the dark, can be somebody's grandchild, or somebody will be spared the grief of losing a life of a child. Anyway, thanks very much. That's my whole story. Wish I could, you know how these stories, you want to give so much to tell people what it feels like, but I'm kind of like, anyhow, I hope that came across.
It was great. Thank you so much.
Rough draft.
I know that was a real leap of faith for you, and I really admire you for doing it, especially as you really were uncertain about telling your story tonight. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you and Vicki for listening to me last week, and I felt so encouraged, and I felt like I really encourage anybody else who wants to tweak up their stories. They're great and very supportive, and yeah, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just about getting over one's self-consciousness. I still have some self-consciousness about it, but I'm glad. Thank you for this circle and your support.
Well, you certainly got your feet wet. You jumped in with both feet. And this is what the swab is about. It's about giving people the opportunity to become a really competent storyteller. And thank you, Deb. You're on your way. It's awesome. So now it's 9 o'clock. I think we've really run out of time. And does Vicki or Genevieve, could you bring your stories next month?
I'll work on it. I'll bring a story sometime soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. And let's just bring the tellers back. I'm going to ask Vicki. Vicki, who's done this most extraordinary job. She's been our switcher, our director. So thank you. I could not have done it if any grace like you have. So we have Bev, we have Beth. Oh, Bev has gone. We got Laura, Renew, Sharon, Elaine. Is Elaine still with us? Yes, she is. I think this is all the tellers. Thank you so much. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you
Yes.
again, and we look forward to seeing you soon. And I'm going to stop the recording.
It's truly been a super night. Really
Yeah.
special.
Thank you, everyone. Wonderful. Would love